tell us about your trip and the memories that you have about the trip.
All right. Well, the trip in general, we had talked about a long, long time ago, and you were very interested in going to Iceland, and in particular, taking the ferry from Iceland through the Faroe Islands to Denmark. So I had never been to Iceland. So over the course of time before we went, and I'm sure a little bit beforehand too, you had given me more information about some of these local World War heroes, people who had lost their lives in Europe. And I don't think you were calling it a mission yet then, but definitely when we were on the trip, the different sites that we visited and the different folks that we honored, at that point we were really referring to them as missions. So despite the fact that the trip was absolutely for pleasure and we had a wonderful time, included in that wonderful time were these visits to these particular sites honoring these people.
Who were the people?
So the people, the first place that we went was Emerlev, which was in Denmark, the southwest side of Denmark, and that was Kenneth Eccleston. So he went down in a bay with a lot of other people. His body has never been recovered, but yet there were a couple of his crew that their bodies were washed ashore. One of them was washed ashore at kind of a little island outside of the coast, but the one that washed up in Emerlev was the one that we honored at that point. Now, unbeknownst to me, I had booked a hotel near Emerlev, and the kind of the only thing that I could find was a place called Hotel Hoyer, so Hojer in Danish. So we had this lovely host. His name was Peter, or Peder, and his wife was Thai, and they actually had a Thai restaurant attached to the hotel in this very beautiful but very small little Danish village. When we first arrived, we asked our host about the possibility of a cemetery being nearby, because we had heard that this man who had washed ashore actually had a stone erected at some point in time. So he said, the only cemetery that I know of is just 2 doors down. It was next to the kindergarten, which was next to the hotel. So we got settled into our room, and then we went ahead and went down to the cemetery. Beautiful cemetery, unusual to us, as the stones were kind of in their own little yards almost, because there was bushes and shrubbery around that enclosed different family plots. So Dad walked up one row while I would walk the other row, and it was a large cemetery, so we just kept going row by row, and we were unable to find it for whatever reason. So we had dinner at the Thai restaurant. Our host, who was also the waiter and everything else at the restaurant, we let him know that we were unable to find the stone we were looking for. I believe he gave us Harry's information while we were eating dinner and his telephone number. So we went back to the room. Dad, you made a call to Harry. Harry did not speak English, but he probably understood it. And between the two of you, you managed to determine that you could meet up tomorrow morning. And he definitely knew what you were looking for, the American soldier. So then we had a knock on the door, and it was Peter, and he said Harry had called him back and explained to him exactly where the stone was, and he felt like we could easily find it. So he said, if you're ready at 8 o'clock, we'll just go right back out to the cemetery and we'll find it, which we did. So at that point, this was the first site that we had visited, and It was, I really can't find the right word, because Dad, you and your salute to this man. His name was Thomas Tulin. It was, I just can't. I can't come up with the right words, because it was an honor for me to see you honor this other person. And again, he was part of Kenneth Eccleston's crew, which made it really important to a distant relative of ours.
Thalia, how old were you when your father was first declared missing in action?
Well, his plane was shot down someplace in the North Sea, December 20th, 1943, and as far as I know, right away they notified my mother and his parents. And we don't know whether or not he even got pictures of me, because I was born November 26, and my mother did send photos right away, but we don't know if he ever received them. So he was missing in action almost immediately.
Okay, okay. Now, what did your mother tell you about your father, and when did you first learn about him?
I was little, and always knew that I had a father, but that he had died in World War II. But it wasn't till I was probably maybe a teenager or close to it that she told me any details at all.
Oh.
And I know that they were high school sweethearts. They had been together for a long, they knew each other forever, because of course Raymond is a small town. But they were high school sweethearts, and my mother absolutely adored him forever and ever. And they got married in Sebring, Florida in January 1943. And she was just happy, happy, happy.
Oh, okay.
She told me that he always wanted to be a pilot. That was his goal. And I think that had he survived, he probably would have gone to work for an airline as a pilot somewhere, because that's what he loved. Yeah. He and his cousin both. Yeah. And she did tell me that Herbert, his cousin, I think he was a year or maybe 2 years older, and he waited for my father to graduate from high school so they could join the service together.
Okay.
And they went to some of the training places together, and then they were separated, some of the training. But
when he was declared MIA, did she keep his clothing around with the hope that he might still be alive?
Oh yes, she did, for years and years. She kept them until probably, gosh, the 1980s. Her second marriage. She got rid of the things when she got married the second time.
I see.
Yeah. Prior to that, she had a trunk full of things. She did have letters from him, and I wanted her to give them to me, but she refused to. She said they were private.
Really?
Yeah, so she would not give me his letters.
Dear Bill, I received your letter written some time ago. I'm not doing much of anything today as usual. We had a fire going in our room and are listening to the radio. It is very damp here most of the time. I'm still sweating out a cablegram from Fernal. Sure hope it's a boy. My crew and hard luck are all fine. Only a few more missions to go, then I'll be home for a while, I hope. England is okay, but give me the good old USA. Sincerely, Kenny. Kenneth Eccleston to Postmaster Bill Roberts, December 2nd, 1943. Okay, so his remains were never found.
Correct.
But you have done something. You've done DNA testing with the hopes that
Yes.
he might be identified. Tell
Yes.
us about that.
I did DNA. Well, I found out there was a group called POWMIA for all the different branches of the service, and that they were identifying remains. And so I sent a letter to them and asked about it. They required DNA. So I provided mine, and Ken Igo, cousin, he also found someone who would qualify, because only certain people qualify for DNA. And so they have all the DNA they need, and I contact them constantly, bug them all the time. Last time I spoke with somebody was in January. We had a conference call by Zoom, and they are still hopeful. They find remains all the time. I mean, I know you've seen them in the paper. And so it's just a matter of hoping and praying that someday they will come up with the right remains.
Okay.
Yeah. They did find 3 bodies from the plane were found. One was in a bay in Germany, and 2 were in Denmark. One at Emmerlev on the beach, and another one on an island near there, Style Island, I think it was called.
Did you find any other surprises in your DNA test?
Absolutely. I found out that my paternal grandfather had a daughter, and I got to meet her and her daughters, and also my great-grandfather on the Brown side had a son, and he lives right near you, and we've all met. So yes, DNA is a great thing.
Okay, we're going to have to post a picture of the 3 of us.
Oh yeah.
With our famous brown noses.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Any other discoveries that you can think of? Anything that?
No, I think the only other thing is that my mother prayed and hoped that he would come knocking on the door all her entire life.
Yeah.
That was he was the love of her life.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good way to end it.
So it was cool. It was just cool. When we got down into the Netherlands, it was near Bergen op Zoom. There was a place where the cousin of Kenneth Eccleston's, Herbert Brown, his plane had gone down, and also his body was never recovered. It was Dad had some info somewhere or another about where it was, even had some coordinates, I believe. And, we kind of drove around. We had a difficult time sort of sorting it out where it might be. But we did finally come to a place that we believe was where the plane went down. And, Dad, I remember touchingly, you grabbed a beach rose, and we went down to the shore, kind of a little bit mucky entranceway into the actual coast, and you dropped. I have a video of how you dropped that rose, and saluted Herbert Brown, and another thing that was just so really cool to see. And then finally, the last of our missions, and this is the one that I had learned a lot about, was Dudley Tucker, because Dudley Tucker, summered at the house right up above your house, Dad, and the Dudley Tucker Library was 2 families, but the Tucker part was definitely that of that Dudley Tucker. So his plane had also gone down, being chased by several German planes. We knew that there was a stone erected that his mother actually had erected for him. Dad, several years ago, you had contacted Mr. Xavier Adeline in Longpont at the Hotel de Abbey, and he had given you the email address of Dennis Maurice, and Dennis Maurice actually had probably first-hand knowledge of where that plane went down. So unfortunately, Mr. Maurice was unable to meet us that day, but we went ahead and drove out. We easily found the marker, We did the same sort of thing. There were poppies at that time. The poppies were all over the place. So we had a poppy that we put against the stone. We did the other salute. We sort of took a selfie with the stone, and a really pretty picture of just the poppy. The poppies were really amazing then, and it sort of fed into, I think, the military story, and I appreciated the significance of the poppies. So that was the end of our missions as far as the Raymond, town of Raymond World War heroes, people who unfortunately did not return.